This is a question of verifying identities. You need to verify that this side, the left hand side, this is hand side, LHS stands left hand side, is equal to the right hand side. I start from the left hand side. So left hand side is given as 4 cosine square x. This is square. I'm going to improve it. Square x minus sine square 2x. This is equal to, and I start to try to change all these to make the loop as the only cosine on the right hand side. You can see the right hand side, only cosine and only x. There is no 2x. So what I'm going to do, I maintain the 4 cosine square because it doesn't harm the second hand side. Second hand side is with cosine and with x, and this is with cosine and with x. Minus, I'm going to change sine to x into an expression with x in terms of x only. So what do I use? I use the identity sine to x. Sine to x, if you remember, is 2 sine x cosine x. This identity, you need to memorize it. I'm going to plug it. Instead of sine to x, I put 2 sine x cosine x, and this is all squared. This square is exactly this square here on the sine. Now, this is equals to 4 cosine square stays as it is. I'm not trying to change it. Minus, and then I square. I need to remind you how to square the multiplication of numbers, or we call them factors. For example, if you have 2b all squared, how do you square this? Anyone knows how to square this? Yes. Tell me the answer, Hamad. Say it again. 4b squared. How did you get the 4? You squared the 2. Well done. Now, in general, if you have a times b all squared, what is that equal to? A squared, b squared. Can you see how you deal with the square on a bracket? Yeah. For a multiplication of product? I'm going to use this from here. So what do I get with these 2 when I square it? 4. And the sine should be squared. Yeah. So I get sine squared x. And the cosine should be squared.
Cosine squared x.
Cosine squared x. Well done. Here we are. I've dealt with this. I'm going to clear the information I've used, because you know it already now, and carry on. This is how I carry on. Equals. Can you see that 4 is common factor?
Yes.
And cosine square is common factor?
Yes.
I'm going to take that as a common factor. 4 cosine square x, and I open a bracket. What is left inside the bracket? Instead of 4 cosine square, which is out, I get only 1. Minus 4 cosine square are out, so what is left? Well done. Sine square. Does that tell me? Well done, son. Now, do you remember how to change 1 minus sine square into cosine? Who knows what is that equal to? 1 minus sine square equals what?
Cosine.
Cosine or cosine square?
Cosine square.
Cosine square. Do you remember where we get that from? Which identity? Salmin, do you remember which identity?
Sine square plus cosine square equals 1.
Well done. That's from, I usually write this in red. You remember, I always write it in red for you. Yeah. Sine square plus cosine square equals what? 1. So if you move the sine square to the other side, or you subtract sine square from both sides, you get cosine square. So I'm going to change this into what? 1 minus sine square into what? So what would be 1 minus sine square?
Cosine square.
Cosine square. Now, do you know how to multiply cosine square with cosine square? What is a square times a square? Who knows? Well done. H power 4. What do you do to the powers? You add them. You add 2 and 2. Yeah?
Yeah.
I know some people, they think we are multiplying. Actually, 2 times 2 is 4 as well. But it's wrong. The process is wrong. You have to add 2 plus 2. Okay? What about a squared times a cubed? What do you get?
5.
8 power 5. What do you think people who multiply get?
6.
They get 6. 8 power 6, which is wrong. Okay. So, this is what I'm going to use. Cosine square times cosine square is exactly like a square times a square. Well done. So, we get 4 cosine to the power 4 of x. Is this the right hand side?
Yeah.
Equals right hand side. I started from left hand side. I ended up with the right hand side. That means I verified the inequality. This is what is required